Imagine waking up to a world transformed overnight. You reach for your smartphone, but it is completely lifeless. You attempt to charge your electric vehicle, only to discover that the battery plant has shuttered its doors, leaving your car as little more than a decorative object in your driveway. The news is even more dire. Factories all across your country are announcing closures, and government officials are warning of interruptions to essential defense systems. All this chaos has been unleashed, not by war or natural disaster, but by the sudden snapping of a single, invisible thread that runs through the heart of the global economy. This is not science fiction. It is a tangible risk rooted in the hidden world of minerals, how they are mined, refined, and shipped. And at the center of this intricate web sits one country: China. For more than 3 decades, China has systematically and quietly constructed an empire from the ground up. Literally, the empire is built not on oil or gas, but on critical minerals, the essential building blocks of the modern world. Think of cobalt, a key ingredient in the batteries that power electric vehicles, smartphones, and countless other devices. Picture graphite, the unsung hero found in almost every lithium-ion battery across the globe. Consider rare earth elements, mysterious-sounding names like neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium, which are vital for wind turbines, advanced military radar, and the everyday electronics that surround us. And of course, lithium, the lightest metal on the periodic table, which is fueling the global push toward renewable energy. Today, China refines more than 7/10 of the world's cobalt, nearly all of its graphite, 9/10 of rare earth elements, and at least 3/5 of lithium. And these are not just statistics. They are the lifeblood of 21st century progress. How did China come to control such an indispensable supply chain? The story is one of ambition, foresight, and relentless execution. In the 1990s and into the first decades of the 21st century, while many Western governments placed their faith in market forces, China's leadership decided to chart its own course. The Chinese government unveiled sweeping industrial blueprints, investing billions of dollars into mining technologies, infrastructure, and scientific research. State-owned enterprises were dispatched across the globe, striking deals for mining rights in regions as diverse as Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. Through the ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, a modern echo of the ancient Silk Road, China built a network of roads, ports, and railways that now serve as the veins and arteries for the flow of raw materials into its borders. The Chinese approach was nothing short of surgical in its efficiency. Massive state subsidies gave Chinese companies the ability to undercut global competitors, sometimes selling refined minerals below the cost of production to drive rivals out of business. Environmental regulations were relaxed, enabling rapid expansion of mining and refining. While Western countries spent years debating the ethics and environmental risks of extracting rare earths, China pressed forward, sacrificing landscapes for global dominance. As Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, has aptly said, diversification is the watchword for energy security, but the critical minerals world has moved in the opposite direction. This immense concentration of power is perhaps most visible in the Taiwan Strait, a narrow ribbon of water that has become one of the world's most heavily trafficked trade corridors. In the year 2022 alone, more than $4 trillion worth of Chinese trade passed through these waters. To put that in perspective, if you tried to count to that number out loud, it would take you nearly 127,000 years. Any disruption here, caused by military conflict, diplomatic tensions, sanctions, or even natural disaster, would send shockwaves far beyond China's borders, rippling through the entire global economy. Yet beneath this apparent strength lies a profound vulnerability, a true Achilles heel. Despite possessing overwhelming refining capacity, China is deeply dependent on imports of raw ores. For cobalt, China sources a vast majority from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a country plagued by political instability, corruption, and periodic outbreaks of violence. Lithium is shipped in from Australia, Chile, and Argentina. Nickel, as well as other vital minerals, comes from Indonesia, the Philippines, and other nations. In recent years, Beijing has poured billions more into securing mines abroad, sending engineers, building infrastructure, and even providing security assistance to safeguard its interests. Yet, despite these efforts, the supply lines remain incredibly long and exposed to a dizzying array of geopolitical risks. Let's take a step back and explore just how delicate this arrangement is. Imagine that tensions in the Taiwan Strait suddenly escalate, perhaps sparked by a miscalculation or an intentional provocation. The strait is blockaded, either by military force or through the imposition of international sanctions. Ships carrying raw ores bound for Chinese ports are stranded at sea, rerouted, or even seized. In an instant, the world's most powerful refining hub is starved of its most essential ingredients. Within weeks, entire refineries could go dark. Factories that assemble electric vehicles are forced to cease production. The assembly lines for smartphones and laptops, which rely on a constant flow of processed metals, come to a grinding halt. Even the Chinese military could find itself scrambling to secure the rare earths necessary to keep advanced weapons and defense systems functional. This is not just a theoretical scenario. Experts such as Pini Althawis, the founder of Cove Capital, have sounded the alarm. Reliance on China for defense equipment is a completely unfathomable and untenable situation. The United States and its allies are not blind to these dangers. In response, they have launched initiatives like the Minerals Security Partnership, a coalition aimed at securing alternative sources and investing in domestic mining and refining. The European Union is racing to establish battery recycling hubs and strike deals with emerging mineral producers in Africa. But these efforts are not without significant hurdles. As Barbara Arnold, a metallurgical expert at Pennsylvania State University, notes, permitting processes in the United States are too cumbersome, hindering domestic mining development. The obstacles are more than just bureaucratic. Mining is a hazardous and often unpopular industry. Local communities frequently resist new projects, fearing environmental degradation, water shortages, and the destruction of natural landscapes. Production costs in the West are dramatically higher than in China, where generous state support and more permissive regulations keep prices low. Rob Whitman, a United States congressman, puts it bluntly. China dumps massive amounts of materials on the market below production costs to kill competition. So what would happen if China were suddenly cut off from its overseas lifelines of raw minerals? The consequences would be swift and severe, not only for China but for the entire world. The International Energy Agency warns, even in a well-supplied market, critical mineral supply chains can be highly vulnerable to supply shocks. The price of batteries could skyrocket, making electric vehicles and renewable energy systems unaffordable for millions of people. Major car manufacturers like Tesla, which depend heavily on Chinese battery materials, might be forced to halt production. Tech giants such as Apple and Samsung, deeply entwined with Chinese mineral processing, could be compelled to delay shipments or undertake costly redesigns of their products. The ripple effects would touch thousands of industries, from aerospace and agriculture to healthcare and home appliances. Let's zoom in on a particularly crucial example: graphite. While rare earth elements tend to attract the most attention, graphite is quietly the backbone of the battery revolution. Nearly every lithium-ion battery, the kind found in electric vehicles, laptops, and even backup power systems for hospitals, relies on graphite for its anode. Up to 99 out of every 100 units of the world's refined graphite comes from China. Imagine a supply shock here. Electric buses in European cities grind to a halt, hospitals in North America lose access to reliable backup power, and the gadgets in your home become impossible to replace or repair. In one fell swoop, progress toward decarbonization and digitalization could be set back by years, if not decades. The story of graphite is emblematic of a larger pattern. For instance, cobalt, essential for high-performance batteries and aerospace alloys, is refined overwhelmingly in China, yet the ores are mined thousands of kilometers away in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The journey from mine to battery involves a complex choreography of shipping, refining, and manufacturing that spans continents. Any break in this chain, whether due to political upheaval in Africa, trade restrictions in Southeast Asia, or maritime disruption in East Asia, threatens the stability of entire industries. Yet, history shows that crises often breed innovation. In the face of China's dominance, companies and governments worldwide are scrambling to adapt. The United States has earmarked billions for developing domestic mines and building new refineries. Australia, with its vast reserves of lithium and rare earths, is investing in cutting-edge extraction and processing technology. Canada is ramping up graphite mining, positioning itself as a reliable supplier for North America's battery industry. The European Union has declared critical minerals a matter of strategic autonomy, pouring resources into recycling infrastructure and forging partnerships with African nations and South American countries. These efforts extend beyond economics. They are matters of national security, environmental sustainability, and technological independence. The race is on to invent new battery chemistries that require fewer scarce minerals. Sodium-ion batteries, for example, rely on abundant and inexpensive materials, reducing the need for lithium and cobalt. Solid-state batteries promise greater energy density and improved safety, which could reduce the demand for cobalt and nickel. At the same time, recycling plants are cropping up around the world, aiming to recover lithium, cobalt, and rare earths from discarded electronics. These circular economy initiatives may, over time, relieve pressure on mining and catalyze the rise of entirely new industries. But shifting away from China's dominance will not be quick or easy. Developing a single new mine can take 10 years or more, from the initial exploration phase through environmental permitting and into full-scale production. Local opposition, environmental impact assessments, and regulatory red tape can delay projects for years. And even if alternative supply chains are created, they may not match the efficiency or cost-effectiveness of China's existing networks. The hard truth is that, for the foreseeable future, the world will remain deeply enmeshed in China's mineral empire. So what does this mean for everyday people? It is tempting to think of the mineral supply chain as an abstract, faraway system, disconnected from daily life. In reality, every device you use, every vehicle you drive, and every renewable energy project in your community relies on this complex network. A disruption in East Asia could lead to higher prices, longer wait times, and fewer choices for consumers. For businesses, it could result in lost revenue, missed innovation targets, and a frantic scramble for alternative suppliers. Governments could face rising inflation, job losses, and even social unrest as industries falter. There are important lessons here for all of us. If you are an investor, pay close attention to companies that are building resiliency, those investing in recycling, supporting new mining ventures, or pioneering novel technologies. If you are an entrepreneur, seek out opportunities in supply chain transparency, battery innovation, or resource recovery. If you are a policymaker, carefully consider how decisions on permitting, trade policy, and environmental standards can either strengthen or imperil your country's security. And if you are simply a tech enthusiast, stay informed, because awareness is the foundation of resilience. Looking to the future, several scenarios could unfold. The most alarming possibility is an escalation in the Taiwan Strait, triggering a prolonged blockade that chokes off mineral flows and plunges the world into a deep recession. In a more hopeful scenario, a crisis is averted, but the shock sparks a wave of investment in diversification and innovation. Over time, new alliances could take shape. Perhaps the United States, the European Union, Australia, and Canada form a consortium for sharing critical minerals technology and coordinating supply. Technological breakthroughs, such as the widespread adoption of sodium-ion or solid-state batteries, could further reduce dependence on any single country or specific mineral, transforming the competitive landscape. There is also a third, more subtle scenario. The world muddles through, making incremental progress while vulnerabilities persist. In this future, China maintains its lead, but its leverage dwindles as others catch up. Price swings become a regular feature of the market, and companies learn to hedge their bets, diversifying suppliers and stockpiling essential materials. Whatever the outcome, the stakes are immense, as Fatih Birol reminds us. Diversification is the watchword for energy security, but the critical minerals world has moved in the opposite direction. The fight to secure minerals is not just about resources. It is a contest for the future of technology, industry, and the environment itself. Let us not lose sight of the human and ecological costs. Mining for cobalt in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has been linked to child labor and hazardous working conditions. Deforestation and pollution in Southeast Asia have left scars on the landscape that will last for generations. As the world races to lock down mineral supplies, there is a risk that these issues will be pushed aside in the pursuit of security and profit. Still, some companies and governments are working to set higher standards, insisting on traceability, ethical sourcing, and community engagement. Though these efforts are still in their infancy, they offer hope for a more responsible and equitable mineral economy. In addition, the history of resource weaponization is instructive. In the 1970s, OPEC's oil embargo brought much of the world to a standstill, teaching a hard lesson about the risks of over-reliance on a single source. Today, the lesson is repeating itself, not with oil, but with the minerals that power the digital and green revolutions. Some analysts draw parallels, warning that the concentration of refining and processing capacity in one country could be a geopolitical lever as potent as control over oil once was. As governments and corporations search for solutions, many are turning to recycling as a strategic priority. The concept of a circular economy, where old batteries, electronics, and vehicles are mined for their valuable metals, has moved from theory to reality. In Belgium, for example, companies are pioneering advanced processes to recover lithium, cobalt, and nickel from spent batteries. In Japan and South Korea, manufacturers are designing products specifically for easy disassembly and material recovery. These innovations could, over time, close the loop and dramatically reduce the need for new mining. Meanwhile, the search for technological alternatives is accelerating. Researchers in Europe and North America are racing to develop batteries that rely less on scarce materials. Sodium-ion technology, which is based on abundant sodium rather than lithium, is already being tested in large-scale energy storage systems. In Germany, scientists are experimenting with magnesium and aluminum-based batteries. Each breakthrough not only reduces reliance on China's minerals, but also holds the promise of cheaper, safer, and more sustainable energy storage. But innovation is not limited to technology. Policymakers are rethinking trade relationships and forging new alliances. The United States, for example, has revived its Development Finance Corporation to support mining projects in Africa and Latin America. The European Union has signed agreements with countries like Namibia and the Democratic Republic of the Congo to ensure a steady flow of critical minerals. Australia is leveraging its mineral wealth to attract investment and build new downstream industries. These geopolitical maneuvers reflect a growing recognition that mineral security is inseparable from national security. For the individual, these shifts can be overwhelming, but they also create opportunities. Jobs are being created in recycling, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing. Entrepreneurs are launching startups focused on supply chain transparency, ethical sourcing, and digital traceability. Consumers are demanding more information about where their products come from and how they are made. The mineral supply chain is becoming not just a technical matter, but a social and political issue that touches everyone. So, are we truly prepared for a crisis in the Taiwan Strait? The honest answer is complex. The world is racing to prepare, but there is still a very long road ahead. China's dominance will not disappear overnight. But the winds of change are unmistakable. New alliances are being forged, innovative solutions are emerging, and resource strategies are being reimagined. The countries and companies that act decisively and think creatively will shape the next era of global industry. Those that cling to the status quo risk being left behind. And here is a secret you will not hear on the nightly news. While rare earths often capture the headlines, it is graphite, refined almost entirely in China, that truly underpins the battery revolutions. A single supply shock in graphite could reverberate through every sector, from electric cars and power grids to defense systems and the humble smartphones in our pockets. In closing, if you found this video illuminating, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What do you see as the greatest risk or opportunity in this global tug-of-war over minerals? How should nations, businesses, and individuals respond to safeguard the future? Join the conversation, because in this new era, awareness and adaptability are the first steps toward resilience. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The world's next chapter will be